All right, so we're going to go through a comprehensive way to add range to your shoulder to alleviate some of the positional stresses that will cause shoulder impingement or can lead to shoulder impingement, in particular subacromial impingement. And now what will tend to happen when you've had impingement problems under the shoulder is certain structures will kind of tighten to because of the positions that you go to guard, and other structures will lengthen but they get a bit weaker. And so what we want to do is kind of hit around the shoulder to undo some of this internal rotation restriction that'll pull the shoulder forward in the socket and create a narrowed space on the subacromial arch. So key area is first off through the front of the shoulder, the front of the chest into the pec. So we're going to go sort of pec minor, pec major, work through there. And you want to hit it from a few different angles because of the fiber angles of the pec. Now, what we're going to do here is if we just do a little quick test on Brendan here, so we start up vertical, elbow parallel with the shoulder, just going to wind down into internal rotation and go as far as you can without letting the shoulder come forward. Good. So he's getting about 20 degrees, maybe beyond 90. So ideally, Brendan to be able to get his hand down so that his wrist is level with his belly. So he's about 50 degrees shy of that range at the moment. Come on back up. So first area we're going to work through the pec. How we're going to do that is actively work the pec. So we want it to be positional. So we're going to start off, and he's going to be pressing up and down through a sliding motion on the wall. So we're going to be reaching up and down like this. Second area we're going to go to, we'll move straight into an internal rotation route. So he's going to pull up and down into internal rotation, and I'm going to get in underneath here and hit some of his subscap fibers. Now, we're going for some quick range change here. So we're going to go pretty high pressure rather than it being quick activation strokes. So we're going to go high pressure and sustain that pressure for about 15 seconds, just to kind of fast track some of the range, just to give you a demonstration. So we're going to set Theragun up 2400 RPM. So here, I'm going to start just pressing through. So we're going to work back and forward along the line of the pec and get up underneath the insertion point a bit more, get a bit of pressure on there. Good. If you relax your face muscles, it really helps as well. Nice. Alright, yeah, more. Alright, now just pause there. We're going to go into subscap. So I want you to wind into internal rotation and back out. Keep winding up. That's it. Keep winding. Reach down into it. Good. Alright, pause a second. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn side on. Now we're going to go through the posterior rotator cuff. So we're going to go pretty general through here because we just want to release off any kind of long and weak tension through that area. So again, we're going pretty fast and heavy. So just draw elbow across your body so he's in a slight stretch position. I'm going to start at about the capsule line and just work back along the line of the tissue, finding any of those really sensitive tight spots and just hanging over them for a little bit longer. You're going to work, keep the pressure on. Good. And then work up across the infraspinatus. And then up along the capsule line. Good. I'm going to work down into the lat just a little bit here. Alright. Now, last thing we're going to do is get the lat. So we're going to come across. What we're going to do is take it into a stretch position to start with. So because if there's any impingement here, this can be an uncomfortable spot. So we want to use the traction of him sort of leaning back passively to just separate the tissue a little bit. And then you want him to try and wind, externally rotate as much as he can so he keeps his elbow pit to the ceiling. That way it's going to wind up some space in that subacromial arch rather than internally rotating pinch it. So again, now what we're going to do is work. We're going to actually get this sort of junction of tissue at the tricep head, like where the tricep comes across, the lat sweeps up around, infraspinatus and teres, they all kind of sweep across that area. There's a lot of fascial tissue that can get quite tight and bound up there. So we're going to work, start off at the tricep. Good, and just want to get him to sink into that as he can into a stretch position. Going to get that fascial tissue And then we're going to work down into the lat. Just watch your hand there, mate. Work down across the angle of the scapula. Alright. So, start to finish, we've probably spent about, if you took out the talking, we probably spent about a minute, maybe 90 seconds just working through those structures. So we get you to come back to the wall, check where the position is now. So remember we were like 90 degrees to 0, and then 20, so his hand was about this height before. So I'm just going to wind your hand down from there. Hey, look at that. And he's still got the same amount of contact with the wall at the shoulder girdle there. And his hand now, like his wrist, is basically at his belly line. So we've added like effectively like 30, 40 degrees of range, of active range. If you take it back into external rotation and then kind of slide up the wall there. So now here, still a weak spot for him, but we're again like another 30, 40 degrees higher than he was able to do at the start of this movement with the shoulder in a good position. So this is going to allow him to express more control through a bigger range of motion without getting this sort of forward protracted shoulder position and elevated shoulder position to deal with the lack of range of motion. It's going to take a lot of pressure off the subacromial space, alleviate some of that pinching, and allow him to train more and strengthen up that new range. So with the subscap and pec work, posterior cuff and lat that we just released off for Brendan's shoulder, I was using the thumb amp bit. Now, the reason I use that is it's pretty high density, pretty focal pressure, so it's a little bit more aggressive for shoulder release work, so you can get quick change out of it. If you're a little bit sensitive in terms of the sensation of pressure, if you don't deal well with that, or if you have any soreness, then I'd recommend dialing it back a little bit. This will allow you to get to the subscap a lot better and sort of isolate some of those posterior rotator cuff structures better, because as you go up to say small ball and bit, it's a broader surface area, so the contact point isn't as focused. Then if it's very sensitive, if you're very sore or you have any underlying injury to the area that you're a bit concerned about, and sensitive to bruising and so on, then the dampener is the go, because it's the softest and broadest. So you're basically going from most focal, most pressure, and probably the most uncomfortable if you're trying to make quick change, to broader surface area, less pressure, and the broadest and softest. So you'll be more specific with this one, least specific with the dampener, but all will do the job. It'll just be a little slower to get the change with the dampener as it will be with the thumb.